You're listening to the Copywriter On Call podcast. I'm your host, Sara Gillis, copywriter, word magic maker, and owner of What Sara Said. On this podcast, you'll feel empowered to show up online in a way that has you saying, "That's so me." Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Copywriter On Call podcast. I'm your host, Sara Gillis, and I am logging some on-call hours today with the CEO of Interact, Josh. Hi, Josh. How are you?
I'm not bad. It's a sunny day, so I'm happy.
Yes, we have sunshine here too in South Dakota, which is rare. We typically we have, snowstorms and rain and all of the things around here. So where are you located, Josh?
Not too far away. I'm in Denver, so
Oh, okay. There you go.
maybe it's the same sunny weather.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, I'm so glad to have you here. I would love for you to just start by introducing yourself and telling us who you are, what you do, and what you love about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm the CEO of Interact. Interact is a quiz software. Now it's an AI-powered quiz software, so you can build quizzes for anything you want, and now you can just put in a website URL or a blog post URL, and the AI makes the quiz for you, which is really fun, and I actually very much enjoy using that. I've been at this for 11 years now, so my co-founders and I started in college, and we've built it up to 7,000 paying customers now. So lots of businesses, large and small, use it to engage audiences, get leads, and generally just kind of make the internet a more fun and personal place. So it's a cool thing that we've been doing. I'd say that's what I love the most about it, honestly, is like seeing the cool ways that people create connection and engagement and conversation through these quizzes. Like, it's really an opportunity to express yourself in a medium that is one-to-one. Like, you're talking to the person who's taking your quiz, and you don't have to be so formal and try to, make something that sounds like a pamphlet or a brochure. You can just have a conversation. And I think that's really special. I feel like it's a little bit of humanity infused back into an internet that's otherwise very blah.
Yeah, I love that so much. Obviously, that's what I'm all about. I'm all about showing up as a human, showing up authentically online. And I feel like that's something that I really resonate as an Interact user myself, but also I've found that my clients really interact with, whether it's me writing for them writing for themselves, or them creating quizzes like this to get engagement. So I love that so much. Will you kind of take us down your entrepreneurial path? The entrepreneur inside of me is always curious about how people come to own their businesses and what their journey looked like. So I would love to hear that from your perspective.
Yeah, for sure. So mine kind of came out of necessity when I was kind of reaching my money earning years. We were in the midst of the 2008 financial recession, and there wasn't a lot of options to make money for me. And I always liked to build things as far back as I can remember. I was always a builder, a maker. And so I figured I could build a job. And the first thing that I did was sprinklers and lawn care, like lawn installations. Like, if you're familiar with what sod is, it's basically the heaviest substance that humans have ever created. It's rolls of grass that weigh like 100 pounds, and this is like the most absurd thing ever. But I knew how to install that and like actually plant it so it doesn't die. And also I knew how to put in the sprinkler systems to get that grass to be watered. So I started just like pitching jobs for that. And I just undercutted the market dramatically. I mean, I was 16, so, I can afford to do that. And then I'd hire a bunch of friends, and we'd go move rolls of 100-pound grass in the hot sun. It was like 100 plus degrees. Lay them all out, put in the sprinkler system, and we'd make good money. And that was my first foray. Then I switched over into used electronics marketplace. So I'd buy, refurbish, and then resell computers. And that was a really solid business. And then in college, I met my two co-founders, and they're just so talented. I was like, I want to work with these guys on something. And we just started building websites at first. And then the quiz concept came across our consciousness. It was through a client, and that was something we'd never seen before. There was nothing for it at the time. There was no quiz makers that existed. And so we decided to build it. We had the people to build it, and we also like had the idea, and it was just like the right place, right time, but really just from doing the hard work to get into the right place at the right time. And that's where that started. And then we bootstrapped the whole thing up. We've never had outside funding, which is quite rare in the world of software because there's a lot of upfront costs, and you have people on subscriptions, so you really need to build up your base over time. But we did that and just kind of slowly, incrementally grew it, and then got it to where it is today.
That's awesome. So it was really like you said, perfect timing, finding those like-minded people that ended up being your co-founders, and then building out not only the platform from there, but also your team from there. How many people are on your team now?
Yeah, we're 13 full-time now. So
Okay.
it's a really great group of people.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. I love that you kind of started in what is totally unrelated, but really gave you your entrepreneur chops in the sod business and the lawn care business. I think that that's awesome, and I think that's a lot of entrepreneurs' stories. How they get started is probably not where they end up or not where they are today, and it's really whatever it takes to get you entrepreneurial minded and to get your feet wet in that regard. So
100%.
it seems like interactive quizzes, it was this idea that you guys had, and it seems like it's just blowing up, for lack of a better term, continuing really to kind of take a lot of different business owners by surprise, but also a lot of customers are finding delight in joy in taking these quizzes that feel like the quizzes we used to take in fashion magazines as kids, or the quizzes that we used to get on the first day of school that our teacher would try and use to learn our personality. And so I'm wondering why you think these are so effective as lead magnets.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to just human nature, for lack of a better term. Like, people like to be asked about themselves.
Mm,
It's I mean, this is a little sciencey, but it really does release like positive chemicals in your brain. Like dopamine gets released when
mm,
you are asked about yourself. There's something very evolutionary almost about that, where if you are ignored, you think back to like when people roamed around in groups, right? If you were not part of a group, then you'd be off on your own and you can't survive on your own. So
mm,
being seen and recognized and asked about yourself and having somebody pay attention to you is very innate in human beings. And
mm,
I kind of feel like we almost got it wrong on the internet. Like, there's a really kind of funny to me article in the Harvard Business Review from 1996. All these marketing execs basically said that quizzes were going to be like the homepage of every website. And
mm,
that didn't happen. I don't know why exactly. Um, Other than like the big tech players do use essentially the same technology as quizzes. Like you think about Netflix recommendations, like
mm,
they're tracking what your interests are and then showing you stuff, although they're not necessarily asking you. But you are seeing it more and more now. Like Pinterest has a quiz ad option now, which
mm.
was never there. Google has quizzes built into their shopping where it asks you your preferences. It is starting to catch on now. But yeah, I mean, people like to be asked about themselves. They like to talk about themselves. They like to answer those questions and be seen and heard and paid attention to. And if you do that, like, it's just a huge competitive advantage. It sets you apart from everybody else who's just like blasting messages nonstop, which is what the internet became initially. And I think maybe now people are starting to realize like, this is not really what we wanted it to be.
I love that. I think, yeah, if you want to stand out from the noise, right? If you want your voice to elevate from the noise, asking your people what they want to hear from you, what their preferences are, that's key. And why not do it in an enjoyable manner where they feel seen, they're able to feel seen and heard, and they're able to kind of express their personality along the journey. I love that idea. So, obviously, we're talking a lot about quizzes as lead magnets, but I would love to know what your thoughts are about using quizzes at different points in the customer journey. Is there a quiz idea or a juncture in the customer journey that we're missing?
Yeah, I mean, the broad, set of things that we do is automation. So I always, when I'm talking to a customer for the first time, I just talk through what are the manual things that you have to do? What are the conversations that you have to have over and over again? And a lot of times those conversations are pre-customer, like
Mm,
before somebody's your customer. You're a health coach and everybody's asking you about like, oh, should I, be doing these fad diets? Like what's like the ideal nutrition for me, right? Everybody's asking you that. You get it all the time. So then you make a quiz, right? It's like, what's the ideal nutrition for you, right? And
mhm,
recommends a diet plan. But there's also cases post customer acquisition where maybe you have an onboarding form, and that's a much, much longer set of questions where you are asking people about their preferences and what they like and what they don't like. And you're going to use that to actually build out their meal plan. You can totally use a quiz there as well, like a much
mm.
longer, more built out version of it. So that's what we see with our customers that are with us for years and years is you start off with that top of the funnel because that's where you have the most people. It's the most acute pain point. I'm getting DM'd 10 times a day with this question. Can I make a quiz for it? Yes. And then once you get to the point where it's like, oh, well, now I'm getting asked the same questions by my actual customers, you can automate that as well.
I love that idea. I think that's so key to think through the different pieces and parts of the funnel, right? As a customer comes into your life, into your business, obviously getting them into the funnel is the first point that we all think of as business owners. But what are the opportunities to continue to delight, to continue to have that human to human connection throughout the funnel, throughout the customer journey? That's awesome. So I would love to pick your brain a little bit about AI. Obviously, AI is a hot topic throughout contemporary business, and I would love to get your thoughts on it. First, from just kind of the standpoint of how AI has changed what you guys do.
Yeah, it's changed everything about what we do. Instead of signing up for Interact, being met with a blank page where you fill out fields to make a quiz, or starting with a template and then trying to modify that. Now you start off by putting in your website URL. The AI reads the content on your website, suggests quiz ideas for you. If you have your own, you can put that in too. Then walks you through other information that would be helpful to put in your quiz. You don't even have to put any of that in though. The AI will read everything that you've got, arrange it all, and create a quiz. And those quizzes are up to the Interact standard because we wrote the AI, and it's not what you're going to experience if you use one of the chat bots. It's
Mm-hmm.
heavily programmed on the back end with examples and instructions of how a quiz should function that puts that quiz into the right format. And it's been a game changer. Our customers are activating a lot more. They're using quizzes a lot more. It's like hilarious. I was talking with our customer success team, and they were like looking back through the last couple months of people to reach out to who are struggling, and they're like, there are none. Like everybody's just using the quizzes. And you rewind before the AI, it's a totally different game. Like
Mm,
half the people, not half, but some percentage of the people are not using the quizzes. They never got through the quiz making phase to actually implement it and see the results. It's not the case anymore. And so, huge game changer for us, although I will definitely heavily caveat that with like, if it wasn't for the fact that we knew exactly what a quiz looks like and program that into the AI, it would be kind of useless.
hmm For sure, for sure. You had the strong backbone of knowing what a quiz should be, what it should look like, what it should feel like for the user, but also what kind of results it needs to generate for the business owner. And you were able to combine all of those pieces and parts into this intelligent software of sorts that really creates that quiz in minutes when it used to take hours and weeks and probably never for some of your customers, like you were saying. I love the idea of an AI tool reading my website. I mean, because I have a blog, I have a website. Obviously, I'm a copywriter, so I love words, and so I love the idea of Interact coming in and saying, "Look, here's some potential quiz ideas for you as a copywriter, but also here are some options for you as a podcast host, as a business coach, as the other aspects of my business." That's a huge game changer when it comes to my time and my ideation and how much input I have. I would love to know kind of how long this process took you guys to really hone in and get that tool ready to go, and how the rollout has been since and what you're really hearing from customers.
Yeah, so like first kind of version to the general launch was about 16 months, but that was a very active active time.
Mhm.
So basically, what we did was we allowed beta users to request AI quizzes, and
Mm.
then we would manually run everything through the AI platforms and then give the customer their quiz and then get feedback from them on what they liked and what they didn't like. We did that. I'll have to look up the number, but thousands of times, literally
Mhm.
thousands of times. Um, and every single time we did that, we would refine the prompts and optimize everything to make sure it was good. We never used any customer information. We just made a hard rule from the beginning, like we're not touching our customers' work
Yeah.
because people work too hard to have an AI just come in and steal it all. So everything that we did was us writing it.
Mhm.
We have about 300 pages of prompts that were tested and thrown out and tested and thrown out. The final version is about a 40-page
Mm.
prompt that we feed into the AI systems in different ways. And
Mhm.
then we collaborate that with the information that you give us from your website and other inputs that you have. You can control the AI and give it areas to focus on and things that you want to especially highlight in your quiz. You can put that in, we'll put it all together, and then it generates the quiz directly into your Interact dashboard now, which is the big game changer when that happened, because now you can like change it, you can add questions, you can do whatever. So that was kind of the general process to get it where it is now. Now we're refining it further and further. We're adding new components to it. We're constantly updating things and like looking at what's working, what's not working. But the reception has been incredible. I mean, the response is just like overwhelmingly positive of like this got me over the hump of like getting my first draft done.
Mm.
uh, it's never intended to do the entire thing because we don't want to take the human out of the loop. Like, we want the person's creativity to still show up. And even though the AI is just reading your existing stuff and then creating the quiz, we still want you to put your final stamp on it. And so we try to get it to a place where it just cues you up to think about like, oh, yeah, I could make some changes here and here and here. That's an easy thing. You don't have to think about it a lot, and then you're ready to go. So it's been the coolest thing that I've ever launched, because
Mhm.
I've never launched something where immediately, and I think it just goes back to like those thousands of reps that we did working with customers, because we already knew it was what people wanted.
Right.
But I've never launched something where it's just like immediately the reception is like, this is cool and I know how to use it. It's
Yeah.
mind blowing.
That's awesome. And with I think that there is that barrier to entry. There's that nervousness of like, am I going to know how to do this? Am I going to know how to use this? And I feel like that's a big hurdle for a lot of companies who are trying to get into the AI game. And so the fact that you had all of those reps and all of those beta testers and you really took your time getting through that process, that definitely speaks volumes to the incredible response you've had, but also just to knowing your customer base really well. And that's something that any business owner, whether you're a photographer or a copywriter or a quiz maker like you guys, that's something that everybody can get behind, right? Knowing your customer base, asking them what they want from you, that's really the key to, unleashing what's next for your business.
Yeah, and with the AI coming on the scene now, the average is now zero. Like
Mm.
the average anything is now worth nothing because
Mm-hmm.
an AI can give you the average of anything immediately for $0. And
Yeah.
so it is that differentiation, I think, of understanding like, okay, my customers are asking for a quiz, but if I go ask the AI for a quiz, it'll give me the average of what a quiz is. Useless, right? But if I understand what my customer means when they ask for a quiz, because they're an interior design coach and they work with clients who are high-end customers who want a certain type of interior design,
Right.
and then I make them a quiz and I know what they want because I've seen, 1,000 interior designers make quizzes over the last 11 years, then it is that like elevated thing, and it's still run through the AI, so it's faster, it's more effective, it's an immediate thing instead of having to wait for the quiz to come around. So I think that is the big differentiator now. It's like, do you really understand like not only your customer, but the ecosystem that your customer lives in, the other things that they have to deal with, who they are, like what they're trying to achieve? All those things are just like, now that's what's on display. It's not whether or not you can write an average sentence.
I agree. I think that's a really great way to put it. We don't, as business owners, want to be average anymore because our clients don't want to be average. They don't want to have the status quo. They want the next best thing. And we, as business owners, have the opportunity to provide that to them by simply taking advantage of what we already know, which is who our customers are and what they want, what's important, what matters to them. And this quizzing opportunity is just another way to ask them what they want and to continue to feed them what they want. It's really, both sides of the coin. Love that. Okay, cool. Well, I would love to flip into kind of a different perspective here and just ask you a little bit about what you think about business owners today and how business owners today in particular are showing up online. I know that quizzes and interaction and engagement, that's obviously one really great way to show up as yourself, as, on behalf of your business online. But I would love to know what your thoughts are when it comes to, how can someone utilize a quiz like Interact hosts that, would allow them to showcase who they are, why a client should choose them versus the photographer down the street or the creative business owner down the street. What is that marriage here between Interact's quizzing features and the opportunity to just show up as ourselves online?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that story that I was telling about how we built the AI to be able to be effective. And it's funny because our AI quiz maker is a quiz. It's just a very advanced quiz.
Yeah.
And the only reason why that worked was because of those, 3,000 is a conservative number, 3,000 reps going through the process manually with customers. And that was 10 years into our business when we had thousands of paying customers. That was still what we did. And I think speaking of the state of business owners today, and it's always been this way, but what frustrates me the most is when folks haven't even done 10 manual reps and they come to us and they're like, can a quiz grow my business? And I'm just like, hard no, absolutely not. Because unless you've done enough reps of this where you know how the process works and you know what your customers need, you can anticipate their needs and ask them questions that address their needs and then show them a result that addresses their needs because you actually know that, then go and do that first. And I think that's like, everybody wants the easy way out, right? Like you want to just post some stuff on Instagram or whatever platform and have people come and buy from you. But unless you've actually walked the walk, like you've walked a mile in your customer's shoes 1,000 times or 3,000 times, then you don't need to automate. Like, there's
Mm.
nothing to automate because there's no business. And I think that's like constantly the number one thing that comes up is just like, until you get to that point where you're able to, and it's tough. That part is tough. Like, you'll have to, scrape and figure out ways to get those customers. Like, do whatever you have to do to get those initial customers and go through those reps. It doesn't just happen automatically, and there is no easy path to get there. You just have to do it. I think that's like my real big feedback. And then when you do get to that point where you're just so busy because people are now coming to you, they've heard about you, or your content is doing well or whatever, now you just don't have time to manually talk to every single person. Then infuse yourself into a quiz, infuse that conversation that you have with ideal potential customers into a quiz, and put that on your website for some people to go through that flow instead of talking to you. And then you can level up and talk to the higher price customers, and save your time that way. But until you get to that point where it's like, I just don't have enough time in the day to talk to people who are my ideal customers, I would say don't automate anything, because it's a waste of time and you're going to end up having to redo it later anyways.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, that's so important to think about too. Like that specific juncture where you're like, okay, I feel like I have a really great handle on who my customers are, what they need from me. I feel like my services are in a really good spot. I've, audited them, I've evaluated them. I know what I'm doing in each service. I know what each container looks like, what each offer looks like. And I know how best to, sell those. But can I add another layer here? Can I add another layer of automation in order to optimize my time, but also to enhance that client experience, right? And I think that's something that I think I've experienced myself when it comes to wanting to automate too soon when I don't have enough customers lining the doors, right? And only now, probably in the last, year and a half or so of business, am I like, oh my gosh, I really need to automate right now because it just feels different. I'm not sure if there's a way to like educate someone on finding what that specific juncture point is for each of us, but I would argue that you'll know it when you're there because you'll feel that pressure to delight and to serve really well, but you won't have the time to do it.
I think that you put that perfectly, and I was going to say the same thing. When you're there,
Mhm.
you will feel it very acutely. And I don't know what the motivation is, why people are so worried about reaching that point.
Mm.
Because I think that's why people automate too early, is they're like, well, I don't want to get to the point where I'm like too tired or overwhelmed or burnt out because I have too many customers. And I'm like, yeah, you're never going to get there if you spend all your time automating now.
Mhm.
You'll definitely fail. So you won't get there. You won't have that fear, but you'll have the other fear where you just completely fail and go out of business.
Right.
And I'd say the ratio is like 20-1. For
Mm.
every one person who gets to that point and is like totally overwhelmed, there's 20 who over automate too early and never reach that point. So it's
Right.
like, which odds do you want?
Right, absolutely. And I think automation comes at a price, right? It comes at an investment. And most of the time, that investment is worth it as long as you are at that right juncture, right? And like you said, you'll know it when you feel it because it will feel acute, just like you said. I would love to know a little bit about what's coming for Interact. Obviously, having AI powered quizzes is a huge thing, a huge accomplishment, a huge push. But what's next?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more we can do with the AI. It's just like really fascinating. It's like just an endless kind of in terms of both the breadth of what we can do with it, like the types of companies who can utilize our AI quizmaker, and also the depth, right? Like,
Mm.
I can dive into any one component of the quiz. Like I said, we've got 45-ish pages of prompts and examples and whatnot that we feed in to make one quiz. But within that, I can take just the question section and make another 45 pages that just goes deep on like dialing in questions, if you want to swap out a question, if you want the questions to focus on a certain area, to get it really, really, really useful no matter what you're trying to do with it. And also just like more dynamic. So like you mentioned, if you want to put in a blog post, if you want to put a podcast URL, it can have different personas it can take on almost. And so that's what we're really working on now, is just continuing to build that out. And the nice thing about that is because it's software, right? Like we never have to change anything for what the customer sees. It just slowly gets better. So, you know, you come back and use it again, and you're like, oh, this is cool. It's a new way that it's talking about these things, or now I can generate better questions or whatever. So that's really what we're focused on, is like continuing to build out how the AI just makes it easier to create content, and also take content that you've created years and years ago and bring it back to life through a quiz, which is, I think that's the very coolest thing about it, is like you can put in a URL from 20 years ago that you wrote this great post, and it brings it back to life with a quiz format.
I love that. I love that. I think that just adds so much more to the term evergreen content. It's not just the life of the blog post. It can have another life, and it can continue to serve, and it can continue to engage your clients. So I think that's fascinating. I love that you've chatted with us today, Josh. Thanks so much for sharing all of this insight with us. If someone wants to get started with Interact, can you tell us how to get started?
Yeah, you can go to tryinteract.com/AI. I'll take you straight to the AI. You can make quizzes on there for free. You can just like make a quick account and create the quizzes for free. You got to pay to put them out in the world, but you can try it out and see how it works. And if nothing else, get some ideas and get inspired.
I love that. I love that. Thanks so much, Josh, for being here. And obviously, I'll put all of these links and all of this great information for you in the show notes, everybody. But until next time, again, this is your copywriter on call signing off. Again, thanks so much, Josh.
Thanks for listening to the Copywriter on Call podcast. If this episode has you feeling all sorts of inspired to show up as yourself online, click that subscribe button so you don't miss my stories or practical advice to help you express your quirky, vulnerable, and authentic self online. Chat soon.